Final Fantasy VII Remake, the remake episode, as it were. So, Derrick, you've been putting quite a lot of time into this little ditty. How's Final Fantasy VII?
It has been absolutely amazing. Um, I haven't beat it yet. There's 18 chapters total. I am partway through chapter 14. Sometimes how they break up the chapters kind of weird. Some can be pretty short and some can be super long. Um, I've put 50 hours into it so far due to how much I've been looking around and exploring areas, listening to conversations people are having to where other people have beat it in like 25, 35 hours or so. I think my brother finished it up in about 35 on his first run. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but this game has set a bar for what a remake is, what it should be, and they've been blowing it out of the water so far. As we talked about before, when we've mentioned this, we talked about the demo a little bit. Is this 35-hour game takes place in what was a 5 to 8 hour section of the original.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they've expanded it and going into the characters, just it drew you even more into these characters of how much you loved them. Like you were there with some of them for a little bit in the beginning, but it was quickly moving along because that was a full scale game. To where this is just looking at this one section of the game. You get to know more of their background, more of their stories, how they got to where they're at now, why they're in this, why they're doing this, about their family, stuff that you wouldn't even know about in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then along with just expanding the story, they've changed up the gameplay of it. It's still an RPG, but I would consider it now more an action RPG than anything, because the combat is more like, you can do some button mashing, but there's no straight like stop and select what you're doing. Time slows down a little bit as you're going into like your menus and setting spells or setting abilities to go, but there's still a constant movement of everything that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which brings it into that more modern feel.
Yeah.
And versus like straight, strict turn based, and they've nailed it with it. The system's been a lot of fun. They've changed up some things, they've reworded some things, but every single change that they've made and done with this seems to have been like highly thought out and affected like our old school fans of the original going to still respect this because of how we changed this or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And everything seems to be like worked out. Like some things might be dumbed down a little bit, but then some things are upped more, and like they have like how you deal with enemies. There's strategy involved now. There's using all these different like your abilities and your spells, working everything together.
Mm-hmm.
Versus to like old school, old school RPGs, you just level up, stack your stats, and then you can just steamroll through everything now.
Mm-hmm.
Where now they kind of want you to like, all right, use your assess skill, look at the enemy, see what its weaknesses are, see if you can. They now have the stagger gauge to where you can do little bits of damage to it, but once you hit stacked, everything that you're doing against its crits, they want you to hit that stage with the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of keep it rolling.
All right. So was like the demo they put out a good snapshot of what the full game was going to be?
Ooh, yeah, if you're definitely looking to see like how it was going to play and what the systems would be like, that was a real good thing for them to do, was to put that out to give you that taste. So even people coming in new, if you want it, I tell everybody go check out the demo.
Mm-hmm.
If you like that, then definitely, yeah, grab the game because it's just going to be even better. There's even, systems we didn't see in the demo, like being able to upgrade your weapons because I think there's 6 weapons a person that you get.
Mm-hmm.
Each one kind of acts different, has some different skills, and then you can level them up differently. And that's kind of how they've like like they've justified only having that many weapons is because now they have this like weapon upgrade system that they've added to it.
Hmm.
Um, so like I said,
Um, yeah.
no, I was just gonna like repeat and say like everything that they've kind of changed and done makes sense for it, and you can tell it's been like really thought out. Like, okay, we can't have every weapon in the game because this is the very first part of what's going to be a multiple entry series to
Yeah.
complete the final vision of what they have for expanding the story as much as they are.
So how have like how has the story and the characters been? Because I know that's a big thing for people that like the original, like very memorable characters, very memorable story.
Yeah, the story still as memorable as it was, and I feel like these early characters that you meet, I become even more attached to them because of their expanded stories, being able to spend more time with them.
Hmm.
The kind of like personal, like one-on-one, like you're going around with them, you're meeting their families, you're more in their surroundings and areas than you were in the original.
Okay.
And just like even hearing the NPCs around, like I said, like talking about as the events are going on in the game, you're hearing dialogue change from these different NPCs and what's going on and the general moods.
Hmm.
There's a lot to it, and it's keeping the story going pretty good. I know from what I've heard and seen so far is that the ending kind of changes up the timeline a little bit,
Okay.
but so far everything's been like super positive with it as far as the changes they've made. Like there hasn't really been anything yet to where everybody's like, no, this is bad, we're gonna revolt, this has been horrible. It's
Hmm.
overall been like it's getting amazing reviews. The community's like they're out there talking about it, making videos on it,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen hardly anything negative on it.
Yeah. The reception seems to be very positive, which is, you know, probably a huge sigh of relief from Square Enix, who's been
Yeah, because this was
apparently been working on this game for a very, very, very long time.
yeah, and like with such a beloved game, it was either a shoot yourself in the foot because it
Yeah.
didn't come out good and it sinks,
And with their
or it was
current
gonna
track record, you may have maybe seen that coming.
like some people didn't like the last full Final Fantasy and kind of were worried about this kind of building off ideas they had with that. But like with this, they've kind of like they've nailed those ideas. So,
Yeah.
if they continue on, finish this up, and then maybe bring out their next one and use the stuff from this, the next like mainline new Final Fantasy could end up being, maybe another like revolutionary type game
Yeah.
to where it's going to be remembered for what Final Fantasy did back then when it came out.
Hmm.
And now with this reimagining, kind of what it's doing now, kind of changing up that style and showing like, hey, we can change it up, but we can keep that core the same and just give you what you guys wanted some more is like, once you love a game and all, you always want more lore. You want that little bit or some parts that weren't fully explained. Now they can explain it.
Hmm. Um, so from what I've seen, most of the game, well, it takes place in the city of Midgar, and it's kind of like everything seems like a little self-contained, like there isn't a whole lot of big open areas or anything like that. Um, when like for the rest of this game, whenever part two comes out, in 300 years or whatever, are they gonna have to, in order to like maintain the spirit of the original game, are they gonna have to have like some sort of open areas, or would they be able to get
Um,
away with having the smaller spaces for the rest of the game?
I think they would be able to get away with having the smaller areas due to the way the original was. Like, really, the only reason for you to be on the world map of the original game was to go to like these areas, which were all like self-contained in itself in
Mm-hmm.
the original as well. So
Yep.
they could like, all right, we're gonna move on to the next set. This is where the next set's gonna take off. But now,
Mm-hmm.
when you start going to the different areas, we'll give you that like world travel. So they could kind of keep the spirit and then not have to go like full massive open world on it.
Yeah. Do you think that's probably how they're going to go if you had to guess?
I would guess that's how they're gonna go because it's working now for this. Like I love how they have Midgar set up,
Hmm.
um, and like because like you'll have parts that are kind of like super not like super linear because they kind of give you different paths and stuff to go, but it's pretty straightforward. And then you'll get up to where you're in like the hub area, and there's I think three sets of times where you get like sets of side quests that you can do, and
Hmm.
that kind of opens you up to go explore. And then like closer to the end you get fast travel that opens up, so now you can pay Gil to go to different areas to kind of finish up stuff you didn't quite do.
Hmm.
And it kind of does like a good job too, is like once you get to a certain point it'll be like, hey, if you keep continuing on you're not going to be able to go back because you're getting to the end, you're getting to that final push of the game.
Hmm.
And it kind of tells you a little bit like early. That's what kind of where I'd gotten last night was it had popped up like the little tip it does when it pops up, and then you have to hit resume, and it gives you something to read.
Hmm.
And it was like, hey, if as you continue on, you're going to hit a spot, and you're not going to be able to go back. So if you need to finish up anything, if you want to do any side stuff, now's going to be the time to do it. And then you actually get to that point, and it's like, hey, this is a one way. Well, they kind of like, without like being like, hey, you need to go back and do all your stuff again, like how they showed it in the tip. It's
Yep.
like the character that's leading you to this next area, he gives you something. He goes, hey, this is one time use. This is going to get you over up to this. But now you're not going to be able to get back the same way. So it kind of like they worked into the game also saying, hey, you're not going to be able to go back now without straight up just being like, hey, you can't go back. They're like, here's this. This is going to get you up to this point where you need to go.
All of a
But
sudden the
it's a
door
one way.
closes and it locks behind you or something.
Yeah, it's like a one way thing. So, um,
Okay. Um,
So I've got a quick one.
yeah.
I have played the original. So I've played it through. Midcar is not even kind of, like it's a fairly. Does it feel padded? Extending it kind of like four times. Is there a lot of padding in the story at all? Do you feel kind of they've tried to extend it to make it a standalone, or does it all
Um,
feel solid all the
I think
way
it,
through?
it feels pretty solid. At least like for me, there wasn't really a spot where like there's some filler things that you'll do like
Mm,
side quest wise.
yeah.
But for the most part, like just like the story you're getting, the attachment, like why certain things are happening, kind of justifies all that.
Yeah, I'm just
Um,
curious because it's barely Act One of a story, and I'm just wondering that if it ends kind of because it has to still work as its own game. Just
yeah.
can't treat at the end. It's not like the end of a chapter. It's like the end of a commercial break almost.
Yeah, and like for like I
And,
said, I'm getting close to
mm,
the end of that, and from
mm,
what I've seen, just from like titles and of videos and stuff, because I said a lot of people are like the community's doing a great job of keeping it like spoiler free and like
yeah,
respecting the fact that even Square came out because of all the early copies that went out and like, hey, can you guys please keep it spoiler free?
mm,
I think there was only like one or two cases where they actually went after channels that were posting up stuff, but
all right,
it was just some
yeah,
people being assholes.
yeah.
Um,
But
but
you
for the
still kind
mass,
of get some sort of a resolution at the end.
yeah,
Oh, that's good.
I heard what it does is it sets up for the next. Like it concludes this as a game, like because that's kind of how the original game is. You finish up in Midgar, and then you really don't come back until way, way, way later on.
Mm,
Because the game doesn't even let you back in there if you try to.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I heard what it does is it closes out this and it sets up for like, okay, you know where the next game's gonna start or where it's gonna head.
Oh, that's good.
But at the same time, there is some that it said that like they kind of altered the timeline as well for what happens in the game. So it'll be kind of interesting once I push through these final four chapters to see how it actually ends. And
Mm,
but like I said, everything's felt natural that they've done, like the changes and the few things they've like kind of added in, and
mm,
like the kind of like I really like the way they've reintroduced Sephiroth. Like he's there way earlier than he is in the original game,
oh, wow.
as far as like a dominant like he's like, hey, you know he's there. Where in the other
Yeah.
game, you don't really get a glimpse of him until you see that first sword through, Shinra's president dead when you get up there.
Mm. Yeah.
But now it's kind of like, and it even makes sense now because now it's kind of like, um, have you seen Advent Children at all?
Yes.
Okay, you know how like Cloud kind of like he'll glitch a little bit when he's having like accessing a memory,
Don't remember that much, but yeah, go
or
on.
like when he comes in contact with like Sephiroth or Jenova or anything,
Okay.
it'll do that little glitch thing.
Right,
Well,
right.
they kind of took that and they used that in this. So like when
Mm.
he's trying to, because we know he's fused with somebody else. That's how we get the character Cloud is
Mm.
Cloud, the regular soldier, versus the memories of Zack, who was the actual soldier.
Yeah.
When he's accessing those memories to try to remember something, the game will
Yeah.
do that little like it'll give you a little glitch, and it's him like accessing those memories. And
Yeah.
then that's kind of how they tie Sephiroth in earlier because that's tied to him as well.
Yeah.
So that little change, like it's really it's pretty interesting how they did that. And I really like as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh wow, this is fucking awesome how they did this. Like
Well, you
I
have
liked
to
it.
though. You have to because I mean, if you're a fan of Sephiroth, you're not going to wait till like the end of the second game to see him. You have to kind
Yeah,
of bring him up somehow
yeah, and
to kind of
I think they
give him that
really nailed
surface.
it with that. Like
Mm.
it
Mm.
surprised me, and the
Yeah.
couple like the different scenes and stuff that they've added in. I was like, oh whoa, was not expecting that. This is so awesome. Like I don't know. It's
Mm.
giving me that feel of like the original, and now that I have like this connection with the characters, we all know what happens in the original. Like once that stuff happens, once they put that into game, like it's going to be
Mm.
even more devastating than it was then.
Yeah.
Like, because even now, playing up with like the characters that pass away in the original game, like that's what's going to happen at one point of this, and now I'm like, man, I'm meeting their families now. I'm so much more like interested in them and have so much more emotions about them that boom, once this hits, it was like, like I had to stop.
Yeah.
Like even playing through like that part of the remake, I was like, oh god, oh god, oh god, yeah,
It's good that they can do it because there's always going to be, even though it's been very well received, there's always going to be that sort of person that wants a one-to-one perfect exact remake.
right,
So it's good that they've kind of got almost everybody on board, seeing as they've changed and shifted around quite a lot to expand it. It's good that it's been widely accepted.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
worked. Like I said, I think that they've put a lot of time into it. We know they've been working on it for a while. We know it's changed up quite a bit from when they've
Mm.
started.
Yeah.
But like at least they're being like super like real about it. Like yeah, we had to take this time. We had to rework things. They
Mm.
tried things, didn't work, came back, and even like a lot of people want Final Fantasy VIII remade, but they've straight up came and said we can't remake this one unless it's a younger group of developers making it.
Yeah.
They won't be able to do like they're doing now and using the same team to make it because it's like
It's an
kind of like
undertaking.
super mature to where Final Fantasy VIII was like a mature thing, but it was also based around college kids. They were younger when they were made it. It's got that feel like high school college feel to it. They said that's they themselves won't be able to remake eight
Yeah.
because they don't have that same. It would have to be a younger group coming in and working on that to give it that same kind of feel.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean. Mm.
All right. There's obviously been no hint at when there'll be the next part at all, right?
Yeah, there's been no talk about that yet, so it'll be kind of
Yeah.
interesting to see when that comes. Because like I said, they've kept a lot of this closed lip too until it came out. That's why even getting that demo was surprising because they've kind of been silent, like, hey, it's coming. Here's some snippets. Here's a couple screenshots. There's not too much, and then we got that demo, and that demo was like, oh wow, awesome. So we don't know really how long have they been working on the next part too. Like, we know when they had this finished, and they said we need to push it back a little bit because we want to give it the love and TLC it deserves, which it didn't come with a day one patch, and it's in
But
a
did,
super.
but did it need it?
No, it
Oh,
did
wow.
not. It did not need the day one patch.
Mm.
I haven't ran really into any bugs. Everything's played. I haven't had any crashes. There hasn't been any hangups. Loading speeds aren't atrocious. The system works. Everything flows. Like the action part of it stays action packed. There's no slowdowns that are noticed. Like, this is something we haven't seen lately in a game. Like, that
Well,
hasn't needed, like,
They had
Yeah.
like 23 years, right?
that is true. That is true. But, like, yeah, it was just, like, I've seen a couple comments on it, like, wow, there hasn't been a game in a while that hasn't had a day one patch.
Yeah.
And so, like,
Um,
I'm sure
Yeah.
the second one will come out with alongside the remaster of the first one.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Sometime at the end of next generation when they remaster this part.
Final
Right.
Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah, remaked.
Yeah,
Which,
remaked. Yeah,
Which-
I am. I'm really not a big fan of purely turn-based combat, so that like turns me off of a lot of Final Fantasy stuff. So what I've seen, what I've seen of this, it does seem interesting, and with Final Fantasy VII being such a, for better or worse, talking point in the community, it has interested me to pick it up and take a look at it. I don't know how I'd feel like if I get to the end of this and the story is incomplete and I have no idea what happens after it. Unlike like somebody that's played the original where they at least know the basic plot of it, whether or not they change a lot or not.
with that, it's just because I have a friend that actually bought it and is playing it, enjoying it, and he's never played. I think the only Final Fantasy game he's played was 10. So he started playing and he was super confused. So we tried to like explain some stuff to him. But what he ended up doing was going back and watching like one of the recaps of the story from the original game.
Is
And
this
then-
is this the like the original Final Fantasy you're talking about that he's playing?
Well,
Final
he's playing the
Fantasy VII?
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, okay.
He's never played like any Final Fantasy. Like,
Yeah.
I think he said he played part of 10. And he was really interested in this one. So he started playing this one and was kind of confused with story a little bit. So he stopped and I showed him a video. It was like a 40-minute video on the original game that's, lays out that whole story for you, explains all that.
Yeah.
And then he watched that and then went back to playing and stuff started making more sense. So like you could do that if you wanted to. It also depends like how you are as a gamer with story. Like
I'm more worried about getting to the end of this and having it be like, and next time on Final Fantasy VII, and
Right.
like having like, like the end of the end of Halo 2. I'm gonna finish the fight and then have to wait who knows how long for the fight to be finished. That kind of scenario. But I don't know.
I'll have to get back to you on that. Like I said, once I finish it, I'll be able to be like, yeah, okay. Like even if you're not like you said, you're not like really a super fan, so you could like grab it on sale or something.
Yeah,
If
or wait for it to like the whole thing to be out in one chunk or something like that. Or even better if it comes to say something like the personal computer. And
save yourself some space because this game did come out at 100 gigs.
Wow.
How many discs is that?
All the discs.
I think it came on 2 discs.
I think it came on 2 discs. Yeah.
Oh, it did. Oh,
Yeah.
The Red Dead 2 model.
Yeah, the Red Dead Redemption thing.
An install disc and then the play disc.
Oh, excellent.
But it shows because like the detail of the game, how it looks, the environments. It shows the time and effort that was put into it.
Yeah, everything I've seen it looks like a really great, like all the characters look great. The combat looks flashy and over the top and like good effects and everything like that. So It looks like they've been doing something with all the time they've been working on this. So yeah, it makes me, even not as a huge fan of the original, to see what they do with the rest of it. You know, this seemed like with only doing the self-contained Midgard part, it was kind of like probably their safe option. You know, to be like, let's do this area here, and then we can see how that goes, and then what we can do with the bigger part of it.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how they split it up. 'Cause if I remember from the original, it was 3-disc, and you had up to one point, and then you had up to a final point, and then the last disc was kind of like you can go everywhere now. So with this kind of model, and what we were kind of talking about, how they might be breaking it up, it'll be interesting to see like where the next break point comes in at, or how they handle that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we wrap it up?
No, I'll pick it up. I think I'm going to pick it up. I was ambivalent, but I think now I know it's sort of self-contained. I'll have a look. Definitely.
All right. Well, that was Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's just on the PlayStation 4 right now. Thank you for joining us in this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.